We are back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by Rotowire. Here to talk UFC 262, our main event. We're going to crown a new UFC lightweight champion of the world, Charles "Bronx" Oliveira, taking on Michael Chandler in just his second UFC fight. A few people I have knocked on this card in terms of being a pay-per-view. Look, sign me up for Tony Ferguson, Beneil Dariush. I'm excited for that fight. Edson Barbosa, Shane Burgos is going to be a banger. Okay, we'll get by Chukagi and Arujo is going to happen. But yeah, and I'm a big fan of Rogerio Bontorin. It's actually cost me a little bit of money because he keeps losing these close fights, but I'm a fan of the guy. I like this card. I'm looking forward to it. But more importantly, I think it's a great card for DFS, DraftKings, Fanduel. Gonna make some money on this card. Welcome to the episode. I'm your host of Daily Fantasy Sniper. With me, as always, is Chris Olsen. You can find him on Twitter at @RealChrisOlsen. We're down Joe. Joe is in Houston, living the high life. He's going to watch 262 live from Houston. So more than happy to have a fill-in for him, AJ Schullo. You can find him on Twitter at AJ_Schullo. Thanks for jumping in, man. How you doing? And how do you like this card?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so happy to make my debut with you guys, stepping in for Joe, keeping his seat warm, and he's going to be joining the event. Awesome for him. Maybe he steps in halfway through. That's my hope, at least. But nonetheless, it's awesome to be chopping it up with you guys. DFS, matchups, all things UFC 262.
You know, if Arujo pulls out, I'm sure he'll get in there with Chukagi and just grunt for 3 rounds and get scored as significant strikes in fight metric. He'll break a record.
Yeah.
Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I actually just got this is a live update from Joe. He's waiting to be seated at a restaurant, but if he gets finished early enough, he might jump in. So we may have a 4-way little analysis fest going on. But yeah, I actually love this card too. We're talking about more undercard the fighters that we like. I'm actually a big fan of Mike Grundy. I'm a big fan of Andre Muniz. So I actually think this is a pretty solid card, top to bottom. As far as is it the best pay-per-view card I've ever seen? Probably not, but I think we should definitely get our money's worth here, and I'm excited to get into it.
Before we get into the card, could you ask Joe what restaurant he's going to? I know it's a weird segue, but do me a favor and text him, and I have my phone right next to me because he asked me for.
I will do that when I put myself off camera because it's unprofessional otherwise. But yes,
I'll just send it. I'll find my phone. No, my wife. There's a chance I was going to go. It didn't go, and she used to go to Houston frequently, and there's a restaurant in Houston, Tony's, that she was adamant Joe go to. So I want to see if he's following through with that advice because she said she's going to be personally offended if he doesn't go.
Oh
so
boy,
I got to see if he gets in trouble with the wife. Anyway. Yeah. A sidebar, you know what? Joe's not here, so we got to invent some of our own sidebars throughout the day. Before we get started with the fight-by-fight analysis, make sure you go to rotowire.com/free for a 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. Got you hooked up for MMA, obviously, soccer, which is something I'm into, and then you have all the sports, basketball, football coming again. I'm forgetting stuff. Everything season-long daily. Head over to Rotowire, sponsor of the podcast. Like, comment, subscribe to the video on YouTube. And if you don't subscribe on iTunes, Rotowire, I believe it's Rotowire MMA on iTunes and the Rotowire channel on YouTube. All right, that's a lot of intro. Before we talk about, you know what? There was more lead-in for the first fight that I just talked about than I feel like there was us knowing about Christos Giagos taking on Sean Soriano. Soriano stepping in on short notice, making his return to the UFC after 6 years. Giagos the favorite, 9,100. Soriano the dog at 7,100. The line on the fight, Giagos -195. Soriano +175. A lot of close fights in this card. So these -200 fighters are actually the most expensive fighters on the card. I can't wait to talk about Mazzani at that price tag, but that's why we have Giagos -200, 9,100. Is he worth it? We'll go to our guest here. You should go first, AJ. Who you got in this fight?
Yeah, I actually like Giagos. I like the fact that he's the more prepared fighter. He's the larger fighter, being that he's the more natural lightweight. Soriano has fought at featherweight, taking this fight on short notice, notified May 6th. The well-documented issue with Giagos has always been his cardio. I know you guys have probably noticed that on tape, but I did notice on tape that Soriano slows down as well. And like I said, he's taking this fight on short notice. So I tend to think that the cardio here is nullified, if not in favor of Giagos. And the physicality combined with his wrestling and grappling advantage here, I do think he could land takedowns. I do think he could pass guard. I do think he could earn some top control time with this new DraftKings scoring system plays so very nicely into it. And I do think he could, potentially get a rear naked choke here. Soriano's been submitted in a bunch of his losses, excuse me, and including to Levan Makashvili, who's a guy that, looking at his record, had no wins via submission before or after he fought Soriano. So there's definitely some potential there for Soriano giving up his back like he typically does, after getting up from taken down. I think that Giagos could stick at the hooks, get the rear naked choke, and get a submission. So I actually like Giagos. I know he's expensive, but it was a bit of a pleasant surprise for me to see him at 9,100 and not say priced higher than, say, Nijina Mazzani. So I think he's got grappling upside. I think he's got finishing upside. And I think he's viable in both formats, cash and GPP.
Stole my thunder. I also like Giagos by sub. Soriano is a kill or be killed kind of fighter if you want a wiki cap on Tapology, but I kind of fits the style here. I like this fight to end inside the distance. I think that Soriano's worth a couple plays for that reason. The gas tank you mentioned, you never know what's going to creep up. I do like Giagos, though. The pick for me is him by sub. Chris, are we making it a clean sweep on Christos Giagos?
Well, before I give my pick here, I have an update. Joe did not, in fact, go to Tony's. He is at Papisto's, which I don't know what that is.
Papacitos?
Papacitos, yes, there you go.
Yeah, he was talking about that. I think it's in his hotel.
Yeah.
He better have Rotowire propped up on his iPad on his table. You better be looking at your beautiful face right now.
I mean, somebody should, But I think I like Soriano a bit more.
Of course you do.
I actually do like a lot of dogs this week, so I'm back to the old me. But I think the speed difference is going to be something that is going to be. AJ mentioned Giagos is going to be bigger, but I like the speed that brings with Soriano and the gas tank issue you both mentioned. He wrestles himself to exhaustion, that being Giagos, pretty much in every fight. I mean, it wasn't just because he came in on short notice last time. This could be upside for DraftKings as well in the new format. I mean, I think 3 out of the last 4 fights he's shot at least 10 times, so he's gonna be in there shooting. That makes the grappling upside. That makes the takedown and control time upside. But if Sean Soriano can get back to his feet a couple times, that also means that in round 2 or 3. Giagos is going to be gassed, and I actually like Soriano too. He gets tired as well, but I think he is able to fight harder while he's tired. Giagos strikes me as a guy who kind of shuts down when he gets tired. I always like to note those little distinctions between fighters because everybody gets tired. It's just a matter of what you do when you get tired. So I agree that the grappling and wrestling upside is with Giagos here, but I'm going to be a little heavier on Soriano just because I think that if you can weather the early storm, I think Giagos might self-destruct.
AJ, do you ever watch the Fight IQ show when you're not on with me, Chris and Joe? Do you kind of know what you're in for with Chris, or is this a new experience for you?
Oh, no, it's not brand new to me at all. I know that you guys often disagree, and I love it because I think that's more enjoyable from the viewer's standpoint. And I just think it's better for discussion. So, yeah, I love it.
It's not so much that we disagree. It's that Chris is I can't believe I can't swear on the show. He's a bleep madman. Like me and Joe, it's a slam dunk pick.
I take that as the highest compliment. You have no idea.
Let's just move on. This is going to be easy. Like we could have Francis Ngannou against like Amanda Nunes, and he'd be like, wait. Just hang on a second.
I'm just giving different perspectives. That's all.
And I like to give him a hard time about it, but mostly just prepare you for this madness that's about to ensue. I like not reading the staff picks because I like to just see like on the fly what Chris is going to come up with. Anywho,
never do know.
Man, I want to keep stalling because this next fight for DFS, no thank you. Tucker Lutz, 8,300, taking on Kevin Aguilar at 7,900. Line on this fight. Pick him now. Lutz a small favorite actually across the board, depending where you look, between minus 115 and 120. Come back on Aguilar between plus 100 and minus 105. I think the only person to even consider here is Lutz. Aguilar shown he's a bad DFS score. I lean Lutz. Aguilar seems to be on the decline, 3 straight losses. not a super confident pick. It's not one I felt like digging into a ton for DFS because I'm not betting it. I'm not going to play him in DFS. Give me a little bit of Lutz and I'll move on. Chris, tell me why we're going all in on Kevin Aguilar.
No, even I am not that crazy. Kevin Aguilar, he just fights so slow. He's a back foot counter striker. He's got some power. We saw that in the fight with Rick Glenn. But Rick
He's
Glenn
got a bunch of knockdowns actually, which is weird. Sorry,
yeah,
I noticed
no,
that
he definitely has power. But Rick Glenn is a guy who likes to lead with his face, so that kind of helped there. Tucker Lutz is interesting because he has the wrestling in his back pocket. He can, if he chooses to go that route. Aguilar is a pretty staunch takedown defense. I think it's around 87%. So you'd have to see how much you wanted there. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Aguilar is basically knockout or bust. I don't think he scored any higher than 87. I think the max. I just looked. His average fantasy score is like 38. I mean, it's no good. So I agree. This is Lutz or pass. I'll sprinkle in some Lutz because if he can get that wrestling going, he can lead to a bigger score. But yeah, this isn't one I am particularly looking forward to.
AJ, who you got?
So it's one of the fights I'm least interested in from a DraftKings perspective on the entire slate. I just feel like the upside here for the winner is mostly tied to a knockout. And yeah, sure, in theory, it could happen. We've seen Aguilar rocked by guys that aren't power punchers. Charles Rosa comes to mind. It's not the worst thing getting rocked by Dan Ige. We know he has some power, but just seeing him rocked by Rosa is a huge red flag in my opinion. Lutz doesn't strike me as a huge power puncher, but I like his volume, his willingness to go forward. I think he's the more varied striker here. He could switch stances on you. He's more willing to throw in combination. Chris brought up the grappling, which in theory could help. Like again, if there's a guy with more takedown equity, it would be Lutz. But like Chris also pointed out, Aguilar has shown historically strong takedown defense. So I think it's more than likely going to be won or lost on the feet. So I prefer Lutz. There's always a bit of a hesitation with these contender series guys. He's not as experienced as Aguilar because despite Aguilar's flaws, at least he's fought 5 times in the UFC against better competition. So I'm more interested in Lutz of the two, but I'm a 150 lineup type of guy. So I will by default have a little bit of exposure to both guys, but there's just so many more fights that we got to get to that I'm just so much more interested in from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, you have near 200% exposure out the window when you look at the main and co-main, but we'll get there. It's one of the fights I agree, probably for the most part, toss it away. All right, next up, I'm actually interested in what you guys think here. Gina Mazzani, 9,300. I know I threw some shade her way earlier, which she'll find me on Twitter, and her and Tim Elliott will gang up on me if you didn't see that.
Tim Elliott is out there matching bets, so if you guys have some action that you want.
Yeah, Tim Elliott is it's a character, man, but good for him. Mazzani's 9,300. Priscilla Casuara, who I'm just going to call Catch a Beating, not because I really dislike her or think she's that bad, although I don't think she's great. I can't say that last name, so I'm going to go with Priscilla. She's 6,900. Line on this fight, Mazzani's minus 200, Priscilla's plus 185. Look, no one's going to play Mazzani. I mean, it's a low-level women's MMA fight. I feel like it's the lower the level fight, in my opinion, the higher these ceilings just naturally are in terms of finishes. And it makes me want to play some Mazzani because no one's going to play her. Like it screams GPP play to me. And I do like her to win this fight. AJ, who do you have?
Yeah, I like Mazzani too. I don't love her as a DraftKings play, but I like her. When she wins, we know that she scores big because she's a grappler. I don't think she's an elite grappler, but working at that Red Hot Glory MMA camp, I think they're going to come in with a game plan as they always do. And I think we're going to see Mazzani try and land some takedowns here against Casuara. We know Casuara is so tough and everything, but we've seen her taken down by Molly McCann. We've even seen her get mounted by Molly McCann, put in submission attempts. We saw the same thing against Luana Carolina, put in submission attempts there, get taken down, but put in vulnerable spots on the ground. And Mazzani's a willing wrestler. So I think we could see her land some takedowns here. I don't think the most likely thing is she finishes, but we know with this new scoring system, like we pointed out with Giagos earlier, you don't need to go out there and necessarily get a finish. We literally just saw DeLima just lay on Maurice Green for like 3 straight rounds and score 106 points. So
so stupid.
Hey, it is what it is, right? But and on the flip side here, Casuara, I think she's okay just because if she wins, I think it's there's a decent chance it's by knockout. We've seen Mazany knocked out a few times. Granted, it was at 135 against Avilia and Chiasson, who personally I feel like those women just hit a bit harder, but Casuara has still shown some power in her hands. She is aggressive. She's tough as nails. She throws in high volume. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her maybe best Mazany on the feet. So I have some mild interest in this fight, not an all-in fight or anything like that, but I do have more interest in this fight than say the previous fight we talked about with Lutz and Aguilar.
Chris, who you got?
Yeah, I think AJ laid out the dynamic pretty well. I'm taking a little harder look at Casuara because I think she's gonna be a little bit stronger than Mazany here, and that could help with the takedowns. Also, I don't dislike her style for these low-level fights. I mean, she got, I think, the catch-a-beating nickname that you so lovingly brought up because obviously the Shevchenko really,
That's Mario Yamasaki's fault.
Destroy, yeah. But I mean, it did happen. She got destroyed by. But look, she got destroyed by one of the best female fighters in the UFC. So what can you even say? I think
that Valentina would do that to any one of the three of us.
Well, yeah,
possibly worse.
Absolutely. So I do think that in these low level fights, the Casuara style is kind of interesting. Somebody who's just gonna impose their will and throw in combinations. As AJ said, I do like her power. I think if she connects, she has a lot of power, and I just like the style for this kind of matchup. As AJ said, the grappling. I think she got 7 takedowns in her last fight, so that combined with the control time could really be something. But if I'm right and the strength differential is to Casuara, then I think this could end up being a knockout. And I don't think many people see Casuara as a viable option, even despite the price. So I'm going to have a little more Casuara. I take your point, Shaun, about the contrarian pay up. I think that it's live and it's viable. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'll have a decent amount of this fight, despite it being a little lower on a kind of stacked main card. But I think the pick is going to be slightly Casuara, but I'm going to have both sides for sure.
All right, next fight up, Antonina Shevchenko, 9,200, taking on Andrea KGB Lee at 7,000. Really interesting pricing on this fight. So this fight's close to a pick'em, so we have massive line value. If you want to be technical, 5 dimes anyway. Shevchenko's minus 115, Lee is plus 105. So on DraftKings, we have massive odds value for KGB Lee. Like cash games, you need to strongly consider her just for that reason. Aside from the fight goes to decision prop, seems like a very, very safe floor. If you flip things over and you look at Fanduel, on Fanduel, it's a little bit different in that Shevchenko is right in that mid-range at $17 and Andrea Lee is 13. So it's priced more towards this pick'em kind of where it should be. It's weird in that I like Shevchenko on Fanduel because in pick'em, and I do think she wins. But on DraftKings, the pricing is so heavily skewed. I like KGB Lee there just as the better play. I think it's a close fight. I think Shevchenko is slightly better everywhere, can stay upright and use her kickboxing to win this fight. Not one I'm incredibly interested in, except for on the site where I can get more bang from my buck in terms of points per dollar. So that's how I'm approaching this fight. AJ, what do you have for technical breakdown?
Yeah, I think the price shopping is a smart thing to bring up by you because, on DraftKings, it's hard to kind of just disregard Lee at her price point. And look, I've been burned on spots like these in the past where I avoid a fighter like Shevchenko where she's just overpriced and something weird just happens, like a finish happens, or say like the last Lipsky fight. But I'm not going to let something that maybe happened in the past scare me from making a decision that I think is just beneficial to make long term. I don't have interest in Shevchenko at this price point, with all due respect. I think that she could win the fight, but she could also realistically lose, as you brought up. I mean, this fight is razor close on the betting line. I do think that momentum does have a stake in the odds to some extent, and we know that Andrea Lee here is coming off 3 losses, albeit 2 of them were split decisions. But I think Shevchenko is the more technical striker. She's a Muay Thai striker. She controls distance very well, but Andrea's Kyokushin karate black belt. memory serves. She could throw in high volume. She's a pressure striker. So even though Antonina is more technical than her, I think Andrea can make it close just based on her style. And I think Andrea is a better scrambler and a better wrestler of the two. I mean, we've seen the hole in Andrea's game, the takedown defense, but I actually do think that, coming from a judo base, and she's just shown to be better at getting up after being taken down, whereas we've seen Antonina just struggle for multiple minutes on her back against Chikagan, against Modafferi, to where I just feel like if Andrea is the one in top position, she's going to be a bit more imposing than if Antonina gets in top position with those head and arm throws, those headlocks that make me oh so nervous for her, because she could just easily get her back taken. And that's what happened against Lipsky last time out. Only Antonina won the scramble. Against a better grappler like Andrea Lee, I think she could take advantage of it. You don't have to talk me too much into playing Andrea Lee at this price point for these odds. I think you brought up a sharp point with the cash game consideration. She's definitely consideration at that price point. And it's just Andrea Lee's a much more viable DFS consideration for me, really on both sites, but definitely more so on DraftKings.
Chris, who you got?
Yeah, I pretty much agree across the board. I think that the idea that Antonina was able to stay on her feet against Lipsky doesn't really interest me. Her takedown average is like 0.27 in 6 fights, so she struggles. And I think that Lee, as not just can be a committed wrestler. We've seen her get 3, I think even 4 takedowns in one fight, and very strong too. So I think that if she goes for it, she's going to get those takedowns. And I think that, Antonina can just get stuck on bottom. I think that the striking can be close, although I do give Antonina the edge there. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to be in that boat where, Shaun, you say it sometimes. Well, it's like, well, if this burns me, because I'm going to be playing DraftKings primarily. So if she gets like a knockout here, she does. Andrea Lee has shown herself to be very tough. I don't see that being a very likely outcome. So I'm going with Andrea Lee here. I think she can get takedowns. I think she can, get her licks in on the feet and get a pretty decent score as a result.
I like that I just made your phone ding. That made me laugh pretty hard. All right, next fight up. A fight that I have a stronger take on than I thought I was going to, and the more the week goes on, the stronger it gets. So let's see how crazy I am here. And by crazy, I mean I hope Chris is on the other side. Jamie Pickett, 8,100, taking on Jordan Wright, also at 8,100. Obviously, the pick'em fight of the week. Minus 105, minus 110. It's pretty much dead pick'em across the board, depending on what book you look at. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 195. So mid-range fight, likely to see a finish. One that's very important for GPPs. Don't touch it in cash games. Better places to go. All the generic basic advice. But if you need to hear it, there it is. My strong take, I'm on Pickett. I'm going to have quite a bit of Pickett. I don't like the way Jordan Wright reacts to getting hit. It's just one of those things. And maybe I need to reevaluate when I'm watching tape. But when I watch a guy, like just the reactions to getting hit, like a la Malcolm Gordon's the famous example down in flyweight. So I picked against Rogerio de Lima last week. Yeah, that burned me, but I still think if Green could just sit down in a punch rather than walk through it. It's one good piece of commentary that came out of last week. Like guys who react poorly to being in fights, when they're in fights, I don't want to pick them. So I'm on Pickett here. I think he can get a finish, but I'll play both sides of this fight. Chris, how much Jordan Wright are you playing?
It's hilarious to me because as soon as this was the fight and you said, I'm on Pickett, I thought, oh boy, Shaun's going to be upset about this one because I am also on Pickett pretty strong.
No!
I think I told you this was a bad one to do it. You're going to have to try a little harder. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Pickett. Yeah, he didn't succeed against Nchukwi there, but I thought he did a lot of good things. I thought that he was able to force a lot of clinch work, but Nchukwi actually had a pretty strong, I think he's got a judo base, so pretty strong there to work the takedowns. But the thing here is Pickett's reach is going to be really key here, I think. His jab is going to work nicely. Jordan Wright is very upright in his stance. And I think that is going to lead to some takedowns. We know that Pickett can wrestle. And we just really haven't seen Jordan Wright do anything of note. Like he blitzed in for one stoppage in a fight where he was also getting hit in that fight before he got the stoppage, and then he just got wrecked once on the Contender Series and then once by Jeff Neal. So I think he's more of like a tornado that it isn't really at this level, to be honest. I don't really see a lot to like from him. You have to have some of him, of course, because if you don't, it can burn you in a fight like this that, as you said, should finish. But yeah, I think Pickett is the much better put together fighter. I think he can use things like his range, like I said, and the clinch to keep himself safe. And so I'm going Pickett here, and I like it quite a bit. Sorry, Shaun.
AJ, clean sweep.
Yep, I'll complete the trifecta here. It's it's one where I don't feel as good about backing Pickett, but I'm still going to back him nonetheless. I just think he's a better athlete. He's more durable. And I do think he's more tested of the two. He's just been fighting the higher level of opposition, at least in my opinion. There's that very notable, I think somebody put out a tweet of just Jordan Wright's record, those first few go-arounds there in the octagon or the cage rather. And whatever. It was a long loss history. But anyway, generally agree. It's one where I do have some moderate interest in. It might just be a stinker and nobody's really capable of finishing the other, but the odds say, like you pointed out, it's likely to finish. It's in the mid-range. And I always like to get an edge on one of these fights, like these earlier prelim fights. They're not going to be as highly owned because just the casual players will want to target the bigger names on the main card. And we've seen a lot of these fights just blow up the pay-per-view. And this one could be no different. It's not going to be an all-in fight for me, but I think either guy's capable of finishing the other. I'm not sold on Pickett's defensive grappling on the mats. Wright seems to have some competencies in those areas, so maybe he could exploit them. But I do lean that Pickett gets his hand raised. I will be slightly more exposed to him in my DFS lineups, I guess, or DFS portfolio of the two. But I will have some Wright too. I don't want to completely write off, knowing that his upside is mostly going to be a finish here. So.
Agreed. I'm going to have some Jordan Wright as well, but a fight I'll be decently exposed to. I'll probably be about field weight on Wright and just overweight on Pickett is really the stance I take. Moving on, Mike Grundy, 8,200, taking on Lando Venata at 8,000. Line on this fight. Of course, I just lost. Grundy, it's another close one, minus 125. Come back on Venata, plus 100. Look, these type of fights, I just knee-jerk go to the wrestler. It's probably a bad habit at this point that drilled into me by years of playing DraftKings. Venata, despite a wrestling background, has been taken down plenty. I like the upside of Grundy. I find Venata to be kind of KO or bust in his fights, and I'm just always going to lean on Grundy. So he's my pick and definitely better DFS play here, even if you're picking Venata. I think you should roster more Grundy. AJ, how do you have this fight?
Yeah, you said it right there. I think that if Venata wins, there's a decent chance it's by first round knockout. I just think that while he's fresh, while he's got some gas in the tank, and assuming he's focused, which is always a question mark with Venata, you just never know what you're going to get. I think he's a threat to knock out Grundy. I mean, there was the knockout win that Grundy had on his resume against Narimani, but moments before he knocked out Narimani rocked him badly. We saw Evloev hurt him as well. I'm very high on Evloev, as I'm sure you guys are too, but just to see the guy hit over and over again, the head movement could be much improved. I just think that Grundy's pretty rudimentary and stiff on the feet, so Lando will be a threat to him, the more technical striker, more dangerous, faster. But I like your point about the wrestling here with Grundy. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't fight with a massive ego. He knew that he was outgunned by Evloev on the feet. Still, he went to 15 takedown attempts on Evloev, which was largely unsuccessful, but at least told me, like, hey, he recognized what he wanted to do and he executed it, or tried to at least. And you brought up Venata, while he's fresh, he could scramble reasonably well off his back, but, as the fight progresses, he tends to fatigue. He tends to get controlled on his back, and, Grundy could definitely land some takedowns here and earn some top control time. So I think that Venata is the bigger finishing threat here, but I would be foolish to just not roster any Grundy because, like we pointed out, he's a great wrestler, comes from a background. He's willing to just spam the attempts. And we've seen time and time again that scores well on DraftKings. I'm not sold that Grundy just beats the crap out of Venata's calf like Close and G. Casey did, but again, takedowns. That's his path to victory in all likelihood. So I am moderately interested in this fight for DFS perspective.
Chris, who you got?
So how dare you speak anything ill of my boy Mike Grundy? As I gave away, I think in the intro, I'm pretty high on Grundy here. I'll quibble a little bit. I think he's a bit more agile on the feet than maybe AJ gave him credit for. He does get hit a little bit, but I think that if you want to talk about guys getting hit a lot, I think that title goes to Venata in this matchup, who generally keeps his hands low and tries to do the Tony Ferguson Jr. thing, which is kind of ironic since they fought each other. But yeah, and I think aside from the wrestling, which you guys brought up, Grundy is a pretty accomplished submission grappler. He had Evloev in a really deep choke that was Evloev had like one chance to get out of it, and he pulled it off. Otherwise, he was going to have to tap. I mean, I think it was that close. So I really like Grundy's control and submission grappling when he gets us to the floor. I think that, yeah, Venata can hit him hard with something, change the course of the fight, but I just like Grundy's game a little bit better as somebody who kind of has a plan of what he's doing in the cage. And yeah, I like him quite a bit. So, I mean, this is a mid-range fight with a lot of upside. I think you have to play it. And my pick is going to be Grundy going away.
Going away. Wow.
Going away.
That escalated quickly at the end there. All right, moving on. Jacare Souza, 8,500, taking on Andre Muniz at 7,700. Jacare minus 125. Comeback on Muniz is plus 115. I saw a good tweet earlier this week. I like to give credit where it's due, but from DFS by the numbers, saying someone, and I'll pose the same question to you guys, someone make me a case for Andre Muniz that doesn't include the words 41 or Kevin Holland. Because I don't think you can do it. I mean, I actually did do it. I just paraphrased and said he's old and may have a chin issue. So same type of thing. But that's what we're talking about here. The way Muniz is usually going to win his fights, grappling. Good luck wrestling and grappling a literal alligator. Like, no thanks. No thank you. So unless Souza's chin is gone or he completely slows down, which are the viable paths here, I think Souza wins this fight. I think there's some value here at Pick'em, some recency bias from that knockout to Kevin Holland. I'm on Jacare. So, Chris, I know Muniz is your boy, so I know you're against this pick.
Yeah, this one you called right. But I think, for my respect, for who I'm picking, by the way, you called it wrong and who you're picking. Let's get that straight. But yeah, look, I'll make the case against Jacare here. Fun fact. Jacare has not had a submission finish since Tim Bosch in 2017. That's a long time against the guy who is very vulnerable to submission finishes. Two other things to note here. One, I'll bring up Kevin Holland, but not in the sense that you might think. Kevin Holland was doing okay on the ground against Jacare before that knockout happened. He got reasonably close on a triangle. I'm not saying he was going to finish it. I'm not saying he was going to sub Jacare. I'm saying he got closer than I think than.
But Kevin Holland isn't a scrub. Kevin Holland is a Travis Lutter black belt.
Well, obviously, and Travis Lutter, as we know, is the Michael Jordan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
He's not nothing. Like, no. it's not Joe Schmo black belt.
Oh no, I
crap black belts.
But I mean, I bring up the point to say that I mean Muniz obviously the better grappler than Kevin Holland, and I just think that
I want to see that fight. Anybody else really want to see that fight now?
Holland Muniz?
Yeah,
I
really kind of do.
Yeah. We might be disappointed again when Muniz takes Holland down and he doesn't do anything and then sort of talks and tries to just slap him on the head, but that's another story. But yeah, I just don't see how you can trust Jacare at this point. Like I say, it's not like he was dominating any point in that Kevin Holland fight. Go back a little bit. The Jacare Manson fight, he got taken out and controlled for, I think, 7 minutes of that fight. So that's not anything to take heart if you're saying, oh, well, we have a dominant grappler here, obviously. Now, look, Hermansson's a big, strong guy. That obviously has something to do with it. I'm just saying I don't know what you can point to in the recent past to be like, okay, Jacare is still at the height of his powers. He was losing the Chris Weidman fight before that knockout. So the best you can go back to for recent performances is Derek Brunson, and I would even argue he's a different, less stiff fighter than he was then. So yeah, I'm going Muniz here. I think he can finish. It's going to be so interesting to me to see these guys on the ground. I'm gonna look. I know it's Bartosz Fabinski. I get it. He locked up that triangle so quickly.
Bartosz Fabinski,
but it was so quick. It was look. He's probably quicker than Jacare on the ground as far as like wrestling with your legs. Muniz is probably quicker at this point. So even if you want to say he's not better technically than Jacare, so I don't know. I mean, like past history would be like, well, it's Jacare. Obviously, he's going to be the one on the ground. But yeah, I don't know. And then on the feet, I mean, Jacare has never been fast and has only gotten slower. Muniz is not blinding speed. He's going to be faster than Jacare. He's got some power in his hands. So yeah, my pick is Muniz here, and it's just because I can't really trust that Jacare can do much of what he could even in 2017. So yeah, my pick is Muniz.
AJ, talk some sense into my guy, please.
No, I'm going to piss off MMA Twitter, and I'm going to pick Muniz as well.
There you
Nice.
AJ,
sorry, Shaun,
on
but-
the show.
All right, chat. You've been really quiet. Get him. Get him.
Hey, bring it on. Bring it on. Hey, but here's the thing, right? And you brought up great points. It's hard. It's hard for me not to say like, yeah, Muniz, he can't beat him without 41 years old. But here's the thing. This is absolutely a tailor-made matchup for prime Jacare Souza, right? As was Kevin Holland. But it's just, that's the fight game, man. It's just like, I mean, he could get old overnight. At 41 years old, the reality is we just don't see a lot of guys in their late 30s, early 40s just win consistently, except if your name's Yoel Romero or Francisco Trinaldo. But you get what I'm saying over the long haul. But here's the thing. It's just like, he just looks slow. I mean, a lot of damage taken. I mean, he was just sucking air about a minute and 30 seconds into the Holland fight. He's just been largely unsuccessful as a wrestler as Jacare. And yeah, on paper, he's a better wrestler than Muniz, but just going back in his stats, he didn't take down Jack Hermanson, didn't really try to. Even against Kelvin Gastelum, this is going way back, but this is kind of the data that we have to work with. Kelvin Gastelum, a fighter he's much bigger than, 1 for 9 on takedown attempts. So Jacare's just been so unsuccessful as an offensive grappler in recent years, and just the durability and just him getting older and slower just gives me just a lot of concern. And then I also just got to question his mentality. We'll get to Ferguson and Dariush later, but it's just like in this match, we got a fighter's arrow who isn't necessarily like pointing up to the moon, but like pointing up at least, much closer to his prime in his early 30s versus a fighter in Jacare Souza, who's just at the end of his career. He's 2-5 in his last 7 fights after at one point being 24-4. It looked fine just losing to Whitaker, a few years ago, considering Whitaker's pedigree and everything. But then you couple that with all of his losses he's had in the meantime. And I agree with Chris. Look, he looked good against Brunson in a quick knockout. But then even like if we want to look at the Weidman fight, I mean, he was largely losing that fight for 2.5 rounds until Weidman gassed like he typically does. Then Souza was able to close the distance with more frequency, land power shots, and knock him out. And so, and even the Jan Blachowicz fight, like I get it. It's a split decision on paper, but like after we went back and watched that fight, Jacare, I mean, you can even look at the stats. Jacare only landed 20 significant strikes, just had a lot of success holding Jan in the clinch. It was in Brazil, so it doesn't exactly show me a lot. So again, I understand the hesitation with Muniz, like, because on paper, this is a good matchup for Jacare, but I don't think this is prime Jacare. And honestly, I think this is at the end of his career. I wouldn't be surprised to see the UFC let him go with a loss here, just based on the cuts that they've been making to these guys that are big on the salary, but just haven't been performing well recently. I think back to when they cut Overeem and JDS. It is what it is. I hope I'm wrong on that, but like, I wouldn't be surprised at the same time.
No, I agree. There's a decent chance if he loses, he gets cut for sure. I had another point in there I was going to bring up. I had something in there at one point, and then I got distracted, and I forget what I was going to say. All I know is, I was going to bring up the Weidman fight. I don't want to talk about that fight. I was at MSG for that one. Had a lot on Weidman, winning the fight, and then start standing and trading. The worst part is I was in the DK box for that one, and everybody around me is on Jacare cheering, and I'm just sitting there watching him. He's going to go down. Weidman's getting knocked out, and everybody around me's going nuts, and I'm just sad. Much like the leg break, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Please don't bring that up again. That was nasty.
Every time I think about Chris Weidman, it pops in my head now. It pops in my head. You know who should be scared now, right? Just quick sidetrack because we're doing well on time. Is Uriah Hall needs to be terrified.
Yeah.
Like
oh God,
absolutely terrified.
It's like Final Destination. It's gonna happen to him now.
Yeah, I forget who was the first one that happened to. It happened to somebody against Anderson, right? Somebody break their leg on Anderson's shin first, right? That was the start of all this.
No, Anderson broke his leg on Weidman.
There wasn't one before that. I thought in the region.
There was one before that. It didn't involve Anderson Silva. It was who was it? Corey Hill. Oh,
that's right. I'll find it in a second. You know, this is a good place to take a break. Though it actually was a little intentional because I have to take one of those awkward pauses for our sponsors. So if you're watching live, just hang on a second. If you're listening on iTunes, just enjoy these kind words. All right, whatever that was, you guys should totally buy it. Next up, Shane Burgos, 8,400, taking on Edson Barbosa at 7,800. I'm going to get an email from someone at Rotowire. That probably didn't go over great. Line on this fight. Shane Burgos is minus 150. Edson Barbosa is plus 140. And AJ, you're up first. I'm going to challenge you. It's the fight game. Guys get old. May I present to you Edson Barbosa, taking on a really hungry young guy that I like in the spot, Shane Burgos. So I like the old guy before. I like the young guy here. Who do you have?
Yeah, great segue, right? I mean, it's one of those spots, Edson, he's performed admirably recently, but, he's seemingly at the near of his run. He's just not in prime form. It wasn't that long ago where he asked the UFC to release him. He's put together some decent performances, but, he's just kind of got that same MO. Like, we know Edson is so dangerous early on with his kicking game. He's a great technical striker, Muay Thai black belt, but if you're able to, survive his power strikes, walk him down, get in his face, force those pocket exchanges, well, one, you're taking away his kicks at distance. You're able to get in close on him, but also you're just able to wear him out. And I know that you kind of like Burgos here, I think, because, Burgos does have that pace and pressure style, get in your face. We know that the man can't be discouraged after watching that Josh Emmett fight. That's Shane's game. He's a pressure striker. He'll throw in high volume. He'll just not care, march forward. And I do think that most likely Shane wins just because he carries that MO of the type of fighter that Barbosa has struggled with. I also think he's got more finishing upside in terms of like knocking Barbosa out cold, and he could also knock Barbosa out via TKO if Barbosa's tired down the stretch and Burgos is the fresher guy. On paper, Burgos just has much better cardio, higher pace, and that should help him win the fight. However, I am still a little bit nervous for Shane. I mean, he just is so willing to take damage. I mean, he absorbs almost 6 significant strikes per minute. He's just so comfortable with just, he's done better at like keeping his hands up, but still, hands down, just dodging punches with head movement. And granted, he's good at it, but like you can only do that so many times before you face a good striker and they're able to clip you, like we saw Cater do, like we saw Holloway even do, and then we saw Emmett do. So granted, the guy has got a great chin. But I think that Barbosa, we have seen some high volume with him in the past. He landed over 120 significant strikes against Dan Hooker. I think he has it in him. However, I'm going to side here with the fighter that I think stylistically it's a decent fight for him. The fighter with better cardio that has higher pace. And as you aforementioned, probably closer to his prime of the two.
I don't think probably. I think definitely closer to his prime. Chris, why are you rostering Edson Barbosa?
So I actually picked, and if you look on the our Rotowire picks, I actually picked Burgos here. As time has gone on, I've been. This is the closest I've come to wanting to change a pick, just because. And AJ brought up some of it, and like how much damage can Shane Burgos reasonably take before it just? I mean, he took so much damage in the Josh Emmett fight. He's been taking damage before that. And look, AJ covered it. Like, this is the game plan to beat Barbosa, right? Take away the kicks, get in the range, tire him out. Here's the thing, though. Nobody who does that walks away unscathed. Like, they always have to eat some shots. Somebody posted, and I rewatched that Tony Ferguson Edson Barbosa fight. Edson Barbosa won most of that first round and landed a lot of big shots because his counter boxing is actually pretty good, and he throws with a lot of power. Shane Burgos is going to be able to walk through a lot of that, but as the ding of my phone goes off again,
wasn't me this time. Not me.
For some reason, it's coming through my computer now, and I don't know what to do about that. But we'll sort that out later.
Oh, you know what? I know what that was. Jessica, I just posted something on our OnlyFans.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so it's hard for me to really love a guy like that, because you can beat Edson Barboza this way, but you have to beat him. Like, he's not just going to fall down for you. And look, he gets tagged a couple times, rocked a couple times. Maybe his chin is even. You never want to go fight to fight with stuff like this, but man, he just took so much damage. Maybe his chin isn't the same right now. Like, you just don't know. And so I think this is gonna be a first for me. I think I'm going to officially change my pick ahead of. I know this is a scandal, and it's going to get a lot of press tomorrow, but I think I'm going Barboza here just because I can't trust. I just can't trust Shane Burgos. He's going to try to overwhelm Barboza, and I don't think it's going to work. And we are all overwhelmed and overjoyed as somebody is joining us right now in the waiting room. It is Joe Sunzu. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Am I fashionably late?
You are right as usual, time. My friend. Were you here for the Jessica Eyeburn that just happened?
No, I was.
We got to cut that together.
Wow. Am I significantly flushed from the jumbo mango margarita that I just had?
No, but you are significantly flush. I'm assuming Knockout Therapy joined you for dinner.
I wish. No. I not yet, dude. I would not be able to stand up for a while if that was the case. But I figured I'd jump in at least before the hot takes, because I do have two bets. So I will kind of patiently listen to your guys' takes on the rest of the card, and then jump in with my two bets when we do hot takes.
Sounds good. And you know what? I think it's pretty perfect timing. The screen just totally froze up on me. Yeah, of course you would jump in right before we have to talk about Caitlin Chukagian at 8,800, taking on Vivian Araujo at 7,400. Line on this fight, Chukagian is... Oh, so I was falling asleep. I'm sorry. Minus 127. Araujo is plus 117. Line value on Araujo for DraftKings if you want to go that route. Problem is, Chukagian fights are just poison for DFS. They are just really, really bad unless your name is Jessica Andrade. I think this fight plays out slow and boring. I'm picking Chukagian, but I could kind of care less about this one for DFS. Joe, you're here. I know you have a fight on this one. I'll skip you for the others, but who you got for Chukagian Araujo?
I do have a leg of a parlay, which is tied to Araujo. Again, you're right. Chukagian fights, let's hope judges have kind of wisened up to not scoring the grunts and actually looking at strikes. I think Araujo would be smart to press her wrestling here. That's something that's hard to ignore. Actually, maybe last week it wasn't, if you look at the Mike Trezano fight. But I hope she presses her wrestling here. I think this is a pretty close fight. 7.4K. Look, if there wasn't, value in the form of the pseudo-Russian at 7K, I'd say this is a pretty good value spot on the slate at 7.4K. But, I'd say the Russian is better. Although I do think there's some value in 7.4K. I have this as a pretty closely lined fight, and I do have Araujo as one of my bets in one of my 3-team parlays.
I forget who we're up to. Chris, you're up.
Screwing up the whole order, Joe.
Sorry, dude.
I got there. No, I'm good. We got there.
I'm gonna go Araujo too. I think that the big key here is the wrestling, but also the fact that Araujo is also a BJJ black belt. So the tricky guard that Chukagian has, it's not going to be as much of trouble as it was for someone like Jessica Andrade. I think that I think Araujo should be able to keep herself safe on the ground and get takedowns. Chikagian has never had that great takedown defense, maybe because she's comfortable on her back, but I think that would be a mistake here. I also think we've seen a good uptick in her striking the past couple of fights. Much more varied in her shots. Really throws that check left hook pretty well, and can push. Now we know that Chikagian likes to, and part of the reason why, as Shaun mentioned, that she's DraftKings death is she kind of just fights behind her jab and uses her athleticism. I think there's kind of a weird tale of the tape here. I think Chikagian has 5 inches of height, but the reach is the same. So that's interesting to me. We'll have to see how much the height plays. But I do think that Araujo has made some strides with her striking. I think she could at least compete there, and I like the wrestling. So, the pick is Araujo to win, and I think she can score pretty well here.
I have to defer real quick back to Joe. So, Joe, you playing DraftKings Cash this week? You playing cash games? You're on mute. You might not be listening.
Yeah, Joe,
you're
you're muted, buddy.
You're muted.
I threw him off. I totally threw him off. This is on me.
I can do it. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, you have to do it yourself, Joe. Can you hear us?
I lost the stream. I lost the.
Okay.
I have so many open windows in Google that I actually momentarily lost the stream. Yes, I'm playing cash this week. I play cash every week. If I didn't play cash last week, it would have been an absolute fucking sorry, I can't say that. It would have been.
I caught myself. I didn't swear first.
It would have been an absolute disaster if I didn't play cash last week.
Our sponsors are furious, Joe.
Yeah. So look,
Andrea Lee or
Andrea Lee. Although Andrea Lee has got way more upside. Angela Lee, and look, I'm not giving away the secret sauce here because he announced it. I think it's a publicly available video, but like. Brett Apley's, value play here is Andrea KGB Lee. So, I mean, I think cash GPPs, but like even in a loss, she's got a pretty decent floor. So I don't know that Araujo's floor is as good as KGB's floor. And I also think KGB has got a better chance to win the fight. So I would certainly save the $400 and go with KGB. And I don't really think that this is the kind of slate where you need to play both in cash.
Yeah,
I think there's enough room. There's enough room. There's enough things you can do with just putting Lee in your lineup.
And if Lee is going to be that much more popular, from the content creators such as us, such as Brett and others, there's value in just putting on a block in cash games. Just may let other people make a mistake, play a block. Happens all the time. So makes me like a little. I tend to watch everybody else's stuff last after I'm done with all my content, so there's not that echo chamber effect and get some ownership thoughts in my head. But if that's out there, like then I'm probably strongly going to consider Lee and cash, just as a block. Anyway, got to talk about this fight. AJ, take us home on it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, make it 3 for Araujo. I mean, I think similar to the Antonina, Shevchenko, and Andrea Lee fight, it's just a dog or pass matchup from a DraftKings perspective. We know that Chikagian, her style just isn't very DraftKings friendly. And even if she wants to wrestle here, we know Araujo has very strong takedown defense. She's got strong hips. She's got good get-ups, and she's a BJJ black belt. So it's hard to imagine, the one path of victory that we've seen Chikagian go out there and break the slate, it really working here. So I think it's mainly going to be win or loss standing, where I think Chikagian can win. She's got good technical footwork. She's got good volume. She's very long, as you guys pointed out. But I would argue Araujo's more athletic. She's a good technical striker herself, and I think she has more punching power. So, and we know that Chikagian historically fights very competitively standing, at least for the most part. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a 50-50 fight on the feet. But then Araujo, I think, has more takedown upside here. I don't think she's going to go out here and just dominate Caitlin on the mat or anything like that. But if there's going to be some fighters here, a fighter here that's going to take the other fighter down, get some top control time, it would be Araujo. At 7.4K, I mean, I don't think she's like a slam dunk of a play. Like she's going to go out there and get 100 points, but she's definitely my preferred play of the matchup. I think you guys made a good saying that, Lee is the better play for $400 cheaper. She's got better odds value, but I do think that Araujo is definitely more of a consideration for me. I don't want to write her off completely.
I have to say, AJ, you almost got me. I was just about to compliment you on having one of those great Chicago apartments with exposed brick backdrops, and then I just realized that that's a screen.
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking, wow, you got one of those great classic redone Chicago apartments with the exposed brick and like, Chris is sitting there with envy because he's in his mom's basement, and you got that like brick
Nice and
backdrop.
furnished, by the way, Joe.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Watching Evil Eye videos, I may add.
Evil Eye. Okay.
With the lights off. Yeah.
But I digress. Sorry.
No worries.
I don't even know where to go with that. Oh, yeah, I do. We're talking about Matt Schnell, 8,900, taking on Rogerio Bontorin at 7,300. Line on this fight. Schnell minus 155, come back on Bontorin plus 145. I alluded to it in the open. Bontorin's a guy that I really like. I just do. I think this line screams recency bias to me on both sides. Schnell's looking better than he's ever looked. And you have Bontorin, a few losses in a row against good competition. This fight, by the way, is at 135, which is interesting. Schnell typically a flyweight. This is Bontorin's home. Schnell will be a little faster. Look, I like the grappling of Bontorin, and if he uses it, I think he's got a real shot to pull an upset off here. And on the feet, I will never trust Matt Schnell. I should probably get over it, but when a little baby hammer fist from Sandoval knocks you out, that just doesn't go away. It just doesn't. So I'm always going to be nervous about him. I'm on the dog in this one. I like Bontorin. Aside from, I just don't think Schnell finishes him. And there's lots of finishes on this card. I don't think there's room for a lot of Schnell in my lineups. So Bontorin is my pick. AJ, who do you have?
Yeah, I think my Bontorin is the preferred play in the matchup for me as well. I just feel like if he wins this fight, it's probably going to be by knockout, as you pointed out. Schnell's been knocked out in all of his losses in the UFC. He even has a DQ win on the regionals, but he was actually knocked out from an illegal knee by Jonathan Martinez. So as we've seen, his chin is very shaky. He's also very willing to brawl in the pocket. But when he wants to fight composed, Schnell's is actually, dare I say, a very good boxer. He's very good technically. He's fast. And he has some pop in his hands. We saw him rock Pantoja. So I think Bontorin, his way of winning on the feet would be by knockout. But honestly, I think if the fight plays out on the feet for 15 minutes and Schnell wants to fight a smart fight, he could probably box Bontorin's face off. And who knows, maybe even knock him out. I don't think Schnell is in like a layup spot for DraftKings if he wins, but I think there is some potential for him to win by knockout. Kai Kara-France isn't exactly known as like a huge knockout threat. He knocked out Bontorin. I know there's a little controversy in there last time out, but do I love Schnell at the price? No. I mean, I like him more than Antonina and Caitlin at similar price points. There's obviously Dariush I like more. We'll get to Oliveira as well. There's other options I like more than Schnell, but I don't want to outright fade Schnell. I think he has enough knockout upside. And then on the flip side, Bontorin, he's got the path with the takedowns. We know Schnell, if you're a stats guy, like 53% takedown defense or so. He's also kind of a guard player at times. So wouldn't be surprised to see the physicality of Bontorin play a role, pick Schnell up, and who knows, maybe knock him out with a slam. Maybe something weird like that happens. But I think he can land takedowns, think he can finish. Both guys are in play for me, but I prefer the side of Bontorin for the cheaper price point.
Chris, who you got?
So I'm going to start off by saying that I think the chin thing for Schnell is a little bit overblown. Not that he hasn't been knocked out in the past, because he has, but the Hector Sandoval thing, he had just been slammed on his head. I don't think it wasn't the hammer fist on its own that just like knocked him out. So because we saw last fight, I mean, Tyson Nam throws very hard, and he was in the pocket with him taking shots, and he seemed to do just fine. So And chin is kind of weird for me. It's almost fight dependent. I think it might go a little bit for how your preparation, how your weight cut went, because we've seen over and over again people who we think have bad chins and then they get in there and they start taking shots. We've seen chins appear and reappear and disappear. The classic example of this being Andre Arlovski, but there are countless other examples. So I mean, I'm not here to say that. The chin is a huge issue for me. And I think if Bontorin does stay on the feet, like AJ said, I mean, I agree completely. He's fast. I think he has some power. Only 2 knockouts, KO, TKOs on his record, but yeah, he can crack. So, and I think on the ground, he's going to be more than able to keep up in the scrambles. We've seen him as a good and willing grappler, scrambler. Especially from his back. He got those back-to-back triangle finishes on Smokla and a fighter whose name I am not remembering at the moment, but rest assured that it happened. So, yeah. I think,
Trust me, it happened.
Yeah.
Espinosa.
Oh, yeah.
Also, 2024. Trust me, it happened.
But so, yeah, and I think that, when a guy can't stand for 30 consecutive seconds without getting his chin touched and knocked out by essentially Kai Kara France just spamming overhand rights, then it's a problem, I think, and especially with a guy who's going to be quicker in Matt Schnell. I think if this fight stays on the feet, it's going to be a problem for Bontarine. So give me Matt Schnell and maybe by stoppage, maybe. So keep a lookout.
Joe, anything to add to this fight before we get to the?
I'll just say I'm on Bontarine. I think there's real value to on DraftKings at his price. I mean, there are cards when we are literally deep diving for value. There's just so much value on this card. I would make it a GPP play. I don't think I would be too comfortable with him in cash, but I do like Bontarine here.
I don't hate him in cash. I don't think there's a lot of the problem is Lee and Arahu, but I don't hate him at all. All right, moving on out, and I'm really down on Arahu just because she's fighting Chookagian for cash. Like I don't trust the Caitlin Chookagian fight. Could be a whole round where combined they score 9 DraftKings points, and I've taken 2 shits. But anyway, co-main event. Now here we go. The co-main event and main event. Is anybody, before we even get to the fight breakdowns, is anybody not rostering between 80 to 100% combined of each of these fights? Anybody?
In not in cash.
In
not
GPP.
Cash. Okay,
In
GPPs.
GPP.
Yeah, you got it. Ooh, look at AJ.
Really?
Play contrarian. Yeah, I'll play contrarian a little bit.
Right.
I mean, like we talked about, there's a lot of other options.
Yeah.
These 2 fights scream anyway. So when we get to the fight, tell us which one and why, because it probably is a contrarian take. It's probably a little bit of chalk I'm going to eat, and the way I'll get different is I'll take a stance on the guy I'm picking to win. Anyway, so Ferguson, Dariush 8,600, Ferguson 7,600. Line Beneil is -155. Tony Ferguson is +145. Call me crazy. I'm on the dog. Anybody who's going to try and out psychopath Tony Ferguson, not my pick to win. As much as I love Benny as a person, good dude, kind of rooting for him, kind of want to see Tony Ferguson. Well, I used to say I want to see Ferguson get knocked out. The CTE stuff is getting a little bit scary with him, but he's a guy that over the course of his career I've loved to hate on. I like seeing the cocky guy with sunglasses inside getting hit. Like it's just, I don't know, something about it. I think it's a scary strategy. Where Dariush has the upside, though, is that Dariush, we saw Dubronx control Ferguson. Benny's a high-level black belt, a real high-level black belt. You're telling me he can't get a takedown with his pressure? And Tony Ferguson, again, I wish I had the credit for this tweet. Somebody's on Twitter. I gotta find it. Apologies to whoever said it. Tony Ferguson's the kind of guy to spend 2 minutes on bottom and then try and think he can hit a triangle choke in the 3rd round. Like he is that kind of guy. So Benny's got upside that way, but if he's just going to stand and march forward a la the Drakkar close fight, which is what I think is going to happen, give me Ferguson in that. As much as he's on the decline, I've seen Benny hurt. I've seen Ferguson is out of his goddamn mind. I'll take Tony Ferguson. The fight, by the way, does not go to decision. Is surprising, actually. Fight goes to decision -150.
Well,
that doesn't seem right at all.
I guess we just saw. I mean, basically,
I'm not a betting guy, but that don't feel right.
Yeah, I mean, I looked. The Oliveira fight went to decision. The Gaethje fight almost went to decision, despite how much damage he took. So,
a ton of volume.
Yeah.
Anyway, either way, I think it's great for DFS scoring. I'll have a ton of it. Clearly, my pick is Ferguson. This one, I'm probably just going to chop it up, quite honestly, and play like 40% of each guy and move on and take stands on the main event, and we'll see how crazy that one's getting. So anyway, I'm on Ferguson in this one. Great fight to target. Don't touch it in cash games. And AJ, you're first for this one.
Yeah, so I don't want people to think just because I won't have 80% of it, I won't have a lot of it. I'll probably more have 60, and I do think a split, but more on the side of Dariush is probably the way I'm going to go. Look, I just like we talked about with Souza earlier, I just think that Ferguson is unfortunately a declined fighter. Does that guarantee that he loses? No. You laid out a path of victory for him. Perhaps he could win by knockout. He's got a bit of a reach advantage on Dariush. Perhaps he, for whatever reason, the fight is standing for 15 minutes, and Dariush is a more technical striker, but Tony just has that crazy pace. He'll be in your face. He'll pressure you just nonstop. just like we saw him do at Mexico City altitude against RDA. So that could be 2 pass victory where Tony wins. And in that case, I do have some mild interest in him at his price point because he's got some finishing upside, but I like Dariush a little bit more. And dare I say, I do think Dariush is viable in cash just because he's got a bit of odds value, not a tremendous amount of odds value, but he does have a bit better win odds than some fighters priced above him. That doesn't mean that I'm going to lock him in, but he's a consideration for me at least. So yeah, we just saw, Oliveira do his thing. Dariush is an elite wrestler, but he does have a double leg. He's very smothering in the clinch, and his BJJ game on top is very compelling as well. We saw him take Thiago Moises' back. He's very good with his control. He grounded Carlos Diego Ferreira. Actually, probably, in theory, gave Carlos a bigger test in terms of like scrambling than we just saw Gregor Gillespie do, which is not easy to do. But yeah, I like Benny here. I think he wins. Again, the durability is going to be a concern in general, but I think unless if he gets caught or unless if he gets stuck on the feet for 15 minutes, he most likely wins this fight with top control, which I don't think he needs to finish. If he finishes, great, but I still think he could score well in a decision victory with the takedowns, with the control time, with the non-significant strikes.
Chris, who you got?
Yeah, you guys just made me turn off my phone with all the back and forth. So,
why don't you have it on silent? Are you like 67 years old?
No. But I don't know what happened, but recently the my text message have been coming through. I think the iCloud, so it dings on the computer. So I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm trying my best here, folks. But
you might actually be 67 years old.
It's off now, but. Yeah, I mean, the lenses do keep getting thicker on the.
Is that prune juice? Oh man, okay.
Yeah, that's right. The cherry juice actually is very good, but yeah, there was a funny moment at the press conference where Tony was like, all these guys besides Oliveira are scared to fight me, and Beneil Dariush gives him a look like, dude, we're literally fighting like in 2 days. What are you talking about? So, but
you can't bring that up and not bring up the best line of the whole.
I know, but I wanted to skirt it because it's been brought up to death. But you can go ahead if you'd like. Otherwise,
you ruined all the fun.
Is this where he goes? I'm going to break your rib like I broke my students.
No, no, that was the story one. My favorite line, because Joe hasn't heard it, is he's talking to Chandler about how Chandler was gifted this opportunity and said he has Dana White privilege.
And Dana took off laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard.
It was for a guy with a massive brain injury. It was pretty clever.
What's probably funny about it is he didn't mean it the way that he said it. He probably meant he has Dana. I mean, I don't know. Tony might not have even realized the pun.
I think he was being clever. Come on, give him some credit.
I don't know, man.
But yeah, I'll lay it out this way. I agree with AJ. I think Tony is. I'll go a little bit further even. I think Tony is basically finished beating the good fighters in this division. I think if you look at a fighter that we just saw in Yuri Prohaska, what makes a style like that work, which is a lot like Tony's style, but what makes it work? I mean, his size and his physicality, but also his agility, which makes him dodge some strikes with his hands down. And he still gets hit a lot. Now, imagine if you lose a step and a half of that. You're going to be getting hit a lot more now because the strikes that you used to dodge with that clever matrix style thing, they're just going to hit you more. And
throw the stand. Throw the stand.
That's to throw the sand, and that's what's happening to Tony Ferguson now. So I think that Dariush, like his boxing is pretty solid as well. And the thing to mention too is Tony Ferguson has never really been a power striker in the sense that one shot knocks you out. It's always the accumulation. So we don't have to worry about anything like Dariush getting slept or look. Even when Tony was at the height of his powers, he was getting rocked. He got rocked by Lando Venata. He got rocked by Anthony Pettis. I mean, every fight he was just taking a really hard shot. Kevin Lee mounted him and looked pretty close to finishing at the end of the first round. So he's always had those flaws and those leaks that were covered up by the fact that he could use his agility and use his movement, and that's going away. And that's a really scary thing if you're Ferguson or somebody who's backing him. The obvious point to be made here, but has to be made because it stands to reason, is that we saw Dubronx take him down and control him. There's no reason why Dariush couldn't do the same thing. I just don't see it. I mean, out scrambling De La Ferreira, as AJ said. Tony was able to do absolutely nothing on bottom against the top game of Charles Oliveira. I don't see why this would be any different unless Tony can really get flowing on the feet. I think this is Dariush's fight. He's a tough guy. I mean, say what you will about the Jakar close fight. He still came back and knocked out a guy who was on the precipice of knocking him out, and that's got to count for something. So I like the toughness. I like everything about it for Dariush. I think Tony. Look, he's obviously live to knock out. He's going to throw a lot of volume, but I think Tony. Look, he's got one thing to do, and when that thing doesn't work, the movement and the awkward style, he just seems out of answers. He was out of answers in the Gaethje fight. He was out of answers in the Oliveira fight, and I think it's going to continue here. So my pick is Dariush, and it's a pretty strong and confident one.
Joe, anything to add before we get to the main event?
Yeah, real quick. So, first of all, I don't think Tony can get in Benny's head. Let's not also forget that, when Benny was having that little mid-career crisis where he had a couple of L's, the knock on Benny was that he was too distracted, that he was opening up his gym. Poor guy was getting married, but he has been prone to getting hit and getting lit up. Now, yes, his striking. Look, if you train with Master Rafael Cordero, your striking's got to get better. But let's not forget, he was getting pieced up by Drew Dober and came back and ended up winning that fight. If this was Tony Ferguson, circa 2019, I would probably pick him to win this fight. I just don't know how degraded he is. I mean, the Justin Gaethje, I thought he would do a lot better against DuBronx. I like Benny. I'm going to have shares of Tony. I like Benny, for the win here. I think the momentum is all on Benny's side. I honestly don't think he's going to get psyched out by Ferguson. So I like Benny here. Give me Benny. Probably cash and GPP if I could get him in, but I might not be able to get him in cash because I like some of the higher price guys in cash better, but give me Benny.
All right, let's move on to the main event. Charles DuBronx Oliveira, 8,700, taking on Michael Chandler at 7,500. Line is closed. We have some odds value. Oliveira is minus 130. The value's on Chandler on DraftKings at plus 120. Fight doesn't go to decision, minus 485. Seems like a great one to target. I ever so slightly lean Charles Oliveira.
Wow.
Just
ever so slightly. Ooh.
Ever so slightly. I've seen a lot of sharp people on Michael Chandler, and I struggled with it. I really did struggle with this. The reason being, I went back. Obviously, I watched the DuBronx fights. God, he moves. He's so hittable, and Michael Chandler can absolutely crack. And I'm really worried
without technique, he can crack.
I'm really worried that DuBronx, I still think DuBronx is a little mentally soft, and I'm the moment you never know what's going to happen in these fights, and I really think there's a possibility that Chandler knocks him out early. I do think that's Chandler's best path to victory. I think if DuBronx can get into the fight and kind of find his flow, his Muay Thai's come a long way. It's really good. Obviously, the scrambling and sub threat are there. I do like DuBronx to win the fight, but I can't get out of my head this Chandler is very live to a knockout here, and I'm very late to the DuBronx bandwagon. I have made a lot of picks against him, including and past the Paul Felder fight. So I looked like a genius, and then it's kind of fallen off a little bit here. I've come around the last couple of fights, and I'm picking him here. I'm not comfortable, Joe. Clearly you are, but I kind of agree with the line closing up a little bit, even though I am going to stay with the pick, and I am taking DuBronx Oliveira. I am going to stack it in cash games because I don't want to get burned here. I'm just going to stack it and move on. Joe, you're late to the party, and you're doing my job, making the sound effects and clever little things here. That's my job. So what do you have?
Yeah. So where do I start? Okay. So he's not technical striking. He's got a D1 wrestling pedigree, but I don't think he's going to out wrestle DuBronx. He's fought far inferior competition in Bellator. let's not forget how he got pieced up by Will Brooks, of all people. He lunges. I mean, he's got a lunging left hand. And here's a controversial hot take. If he fights Dan Hooker 4 times, Dan Hooker wins 3 out of the 4 times. So I don't get the love. I don't get the line tightening. I think there is momentum. And look, dare I say it, some language bias. Michael Chandler speaks English. He's getting more time on embedded probably because he speaks English. Look, I get it, right? He is the wonderkin of the UFC. They backed the truck up to his house to sign him. We all know who the UFC wants to win this fight. But, DuBronx has just gotten better. I mean, it was impressive what he did in the Ferguson, even if Ferguson was a little degraded. I think minus 134 is a steal. I think DuBronx by submission at plus 188 is a steal. So I have DuBronx in both of my parlays that I'm going to give when we do our hot takes. I'm going to play Chandler just in case I'm wrong and other people are right. But I'm going to be much heavier on DuBronx.
Chris, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to quibble a little bit with. I know that a lot of people were thinking that before that fight that Chandler Hooker was a runaway. I thought it was much closer. Full disclosure, I did still pick Dan Hooker. I thought it was much closer just because I never liked the way Hooker just backed himself up for that matchup. I thought it was too open for the big shots for the wrestling. Charles Oliveira doesn't do that. He's going to come forward, and so I don't think Chandler's going to be able to bear down on him in quite the same way. Also, wouldn't be surprised if we saw Oliveira do some offensive wrestling here. I think that Chandler gasses out in fights, and anything he can do to get that process going a little further, I think would be smart, and I think he's going to look to do it and use his jiu-jitsu, of course. I do think that DuBronx is hittable. I will say Shaun is I can't believe he's not giving up this ghost, because I remember that narrative of Oliveira the quitter. I thought it died after the Felder fight, but Shaun is keeping it alive for reasons that are unbeknownst to me. So
I said I've come around here, and I've changed it to I'm worried. A guy like that, fighting's not easy. I get in there, I mentally crumble. I'd start crying in the corner before somebody hit me like that. But you react certain ways in fights, and I think mentality is a big deal. I do, and I'm a little worried about DuBronx. I just am.
All right. Well,
unless he can blind Chandler with the glare coming off his teeth.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly a consideration. But yeah, I just think that Chandler's a little bit limited here for my take. I do think it's a closer fight than Joe thinks, just because I am wary of the power. But taking away the wrestling on Michael Chandler is a big deal, and I think effectively Oliveira does that. So I have to go Oliveira here. Can't wait to see this fight. I think it's going to be great. The pick is Oliveira, and maybe by submission. Gets him tired in the fourth round submission. Let's go with that. Oliveira is the pick.
AJ, who you got?
My hot take is on this fight. No, I'm just kidding, but I will play contrarian here. I like Chandler just a little bit more. You guys make great points. I think Joe made a great point about how Oliveira is a more technical striker with more tools. I think Oliveira could have some success chopping Chandler's leg, and I think Oliveira could knock him out. I mean, going back, I don't know, you guys are in the US, so like Bellator.com, just found out about that. If I knew about that prior to the Hooker fight, I might not have bet Hooker against Chandler, but here we are. I did notice, though, that in the Brent Primus rematch, Primus, who's a grappler, not a power threat, was able to rock Chandler badly. Joe also brought up the Will Brooks fight where he was TKO'd. A little bit weird, but he was still finished nonetheless. And there was, of course, the Pitbull fight where he was, knocked out and everything. So I think on the feet, either guy is a knockout threat to one another. I would favor, if the fight was taking place for 25 minutes on the feet, I would favor Oliveira because he's more varied and more technical. And just has like more layers to his game. But Chandler's live to land a big power shot. We know that Chandler has enough power to hurt durable guys, a la Dan Hooker, Benson Henderson, and Oliveira does not do the best job of moving his head off the center line. His durability is shown to be solid, but he still could be hurt with a big shot. And so why I ever so slightly favor Chandler is because I think he's the better wrestler and the better athlete. And just going back on tape and watching the Kevin Lee fight, Kevin Lee, a very strong guy, strong wrestler, was able to outmuscle, win the wrestling exchanges, get in top position. He had to weather a jiu-jitsu storm early on. Oliveira is a threat to reverse early on. He's a threat to look for submissions early on. But as the fight kind of went on, we saw Oliveira slow down. He got the submission there right at the beginning of round 3. But again, that's off 60 seconds of rest. I understand the hesitations with Chandler's cardio, but as the guy that's more likely in top position, I think that Oliveira will be the guy fatiguing more likely as the fight goes on. Chandler also has more experience going 5 rounds. So I think either guy, honestly, is capable of finishing one another on the feet or on the ground. I think Oliveira, in a scramble, maybe he locks something up. All-time UFC submission leader. Maybe he happens to reverse Chandler. I think Chandler's got good composure in top position, but still he has not faced a submission grappler on the level of Oliveira. So it creates an interesting unknown. So again, it's not like, I have this like super hot take on Chandler. It's not like I completely disagree with the odds. Chandler should be minus 200 here. I just ever so slightly favor Chandler to win this fight. But I definitely do think it's a very close fight. Wouldn't be surprised to finish either way. If it goes 25 minutes, I would favor Chandler because of the wrestling, and that's ultimately why he is my pick to win.
All right, guys, that's it for the fight-by-fight breakdowns. Let's get to hot takes. Anyone have one queued up? Hot take, if you got them in chat, type them in. We'll read a few out. What is your hot take for UFC 262? Joe, I feel like you were wearing a ghost one.
Well, now it's time to give my bets. So I did 2-3 fighter parlays, and that's unfortunately because I'm in the state of Texas. That's going to be the extent of my wagers. But I did 2-3 fighter parlays, each to win $2,000. So total of $4,000 profit if these 2 parlays hit. The first parlay pays plus 1676. The parlay is as follows: Charles Oliveira, Gina Mazzani, and Gallegos Christos, or Christos Gallegos, wins by submission, which is plus 600, actually, believe it or not, which I find very interesting considering.
We talked about that. I think me and AJ both picked him by sub.
Yeah, considering what's his name? What's the guy's name? Not Moreno. Oriano, yes, since he's essentially reinvented the getting choked out. That is a $119.32 investment to return $2,119.42. My second parlay pays $1,388 or plus $1,388. It consists of Viviana Araujo, Andrea KGB Lee, and Charles Oliveira wins by submission, which is plus 188. That is a $144 investment to win $2,144.10. So all in, I am investing $263.32 to potentially win $4,000.
Hey guys, I'm gonna give mine, and then I think we have an issue here at the house, so I gotta jump off. Chris, if you could take us home, I would appreciate it. Thank you, AJ, for jumping on.
No problem.
I think it's some parenting cleanup to do, if you know what I mean.
Got it.
I will say I believe that hot take. I think Jordan Pickett gets a 60-second bonus.
Ooh,
quick finish over Jordan Wright. Thanks,
like
guys. Sorry, I got to duck out early. I'll see you guys. See you later.
I'll text you tomorrow, Sean.
All right, John. Thanks.
All right, and then I'll close this out here. I'm gonna double down on what I said. I think we see 8 finishes on this card. And I think 2 of them are going to be from Andre Muniz and Lando Venata. And I think both of them are in the GPP winning lineup.
Wow. I think we're all friends here, right? So I'm going to go with Muniz also, and I think this is a safe place to say that he's going to beat Jacare Souza by submission. That is my hot take. And,
that's really hot. That's like scorching hot.
Well, I don't come with the slouchers. This is hot take time. This is time to put it all out.
Did Jacare look bad on the scales? I mean, I haven't really gotten any feedback from the weigh-ins.
No, not really. But I think he hasn't looked good in general. So that's basically where that's coming from. For me, any takes that you have in chat, we'll put them up there. Here we have Ryan Barton. Mazzani, catch a beating, as he puts it.
Yeah.
They win, and they're also on the optimal. I don't see any others. I will give 15 more seconds, and then we will sign off. But guys, thank you so much for watching. That's going to be it. Thank you, AJ, for filling in for Joe, who was gracious enough to join us for the main card. We certainly appreciate it. And now that Sean left, we have our beautiful background back, and there it is. But yeah, that's going to be it for us, guys. Thank you all so much. Follow us all on Twitter, all that good stuff, and we'll see you for the next pay-per-view. Adios.
Peace.
Peace.